Hello there folks, I'm the Lon Chaney Reviewer, and today is the second episode of Silent Links, the series where I analyze the films of actors and filmmakers who were famous in the silent era, but now must deal with the mysterious new challenge of talkies. Today's episode is a film from 1957, written, directed, scored, produced, and starring Charles Chaplin in A King in New York. Let's check it out. This is 1957, 5 years after Chaplin's self-imposed exile from the United States, and 5 years after his last film, Limelight, which was intended to be a swan song. However, Chaplin felt the drive to make more films. Yes, there were characters like Adenoid Hinkle of Tomania, who were dictators from when we first saw them to the end of the film, but this is the quote-unquote protagonist of the film. And a lot of the characters Chaplin played with that had that high class at the beginning of the film were usually anti-heroes or villains, like Monsieur Verdoux or Adenoid Hinkle, like I just mentioned. So King Shardoff is actually a very interesting character in the Chaplin universe because he is Chaplin as a protagonist, but he's a king. And he wants to do good. But he's occasionally clueless and very much old-fashioned. Now, there are several scenes in this film that deal with America. Chaplin was criticizing American commercialism and advertising, and television, even. There are such scenes include where Chaplin and his ambassador, Jaumier, played by Oliver Johnson in a terrific performance, go to the movies and they see these trailers, and they're the most ridiculous trailers, and they basically describe the plot. And you can easily name the stereotypes, which is ironic because you could probably do the same thing with any other movie trailer. To say like, oh, that's that character, he's a killer with a soul, you'll love him, and ridiculous statements like that. So he was criticizing that. He was also making fun of rock and roll, but it made it look like jazz, so eh? And of course there's commercialism, which is a good portion of this film. Chaplin is hired to be a representative, advertising representative for several companies in commercials in different parts of the film, and because of an accidental appearance on television. And this makes him very famous. And later on, he's asked to get plastic surgery to make himself look better. And I think this is really funny because it just shows you how willing we are to alter our appearance, change ourselves, and possibly damage ourselves for the sake of appearing on the camera and making an extra nickel. Another aspect that Chaplin is criticizing here is communism, and this is helped by the performance of his son, Michael Chaplin, who plays the character of Rupert, who's a 10-year-old boy and who is rather bored with fellow children his age because he's just so much more intelligent than they are. He's reading Karl Marx and different government philosophies, and he's like stating things out of the Constitution. But he's a bit controversial in the sense that his parents were communists at one point, and his parents are asked to give the names of fellow former communists, which they're not willing to do, but spoiler alert, he is unfortunately forced to because his parents are sentenced for contempt. And this is very upsetting. And there's an interesting parallel between this film and The Kid, where in The Kid you have a tramp try to save a little boy, whereas in this film you have a king trying to save a boy. But the difference is the tramp is able to save the boy, whereas the king, even through all his persuasion and all that, cannot prevent the boy from revealing the other communist members. Which is heartbreaking when you think about it, because Chaplin started his film career in 1914. And, you know, the problems of those characters from, like, the Keystone films weren't very complex, whereas in the 40s and 50s now, not even an emperor, a king, a monarch can save a child. It's just the problems of the world have gone out of control. So what do I think of this film ultimately? Well, I liked it. I was, well, not looking forward to rewatching this one, because the first time I watched it, I liked it, but I watched it once and I put it down for a year and a half. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to watch this film. And then I watched it again the other day and I'm like, this is a really good movie. I mean, it's not City Lights or Modern Times, but you can't have a City Lights Modern Times every time. You know. What I really like about this film is, first off, of course you have Chaplin's performance. He's really good in the film, as usual. I'm not saying it's his best talkie performance. For me, his best performance, period, is in Monsieur Verdoux. But he gives a very capable, solid, really good performance that helps this character. Oliver Johnson as Jean Mier. He is hysterical. Oh my god, there's some great moments with Jean Mier. Just sitting down, and he's one moment when Chaplin's doing the to be or not to be soliloquy on television, and he's just like, he's so shocked. Because he knows that he doesn't want his leader to he doesn't want his leader to make a disgrace of himself. So it's really funny. Michael Chaplin is very good as Rupert, although I will say there are some moments of dialogue that just don't work, but I don't blame Michael Chaplin, I blame more Chaplin on that. So, but I like the character, you know, I like when Chaplin uses children in his films. There's a certain level, there's a certain honesty that occurs when, you know, I know people complain about kids in movies all the time, but when you get a really solid child actor in a film, and you get the right director, and you get the right script, it comes together so well, and I think that's one of those performances, in my opinion. Let's see, Dawn Adams as Anne Kay is a really funny performance. She basically introduces Shardoff to the world of advertising, commercials, plastic surgery, and she's the one who tricks him into, you know, appearing on television by accident. So, but she gives a serviceable performance, and she's rather likable. Downsides to this film, well, it feels a little bit rushed, and certain pieces of dialogue just feel on the nose. But on the rushed angle, you have to understand, this was Chaplin's first film outside of his studio. Like, he was kicked out of America, so he decided to make a new film. Problem? Well, back in America, when he made his own films, he had total control. He was the emperor of the set. But now he had to rent a set, people didn't always listen to him, he had arguments, and the film was finished in 12 weeks, which is a very short amount of time for a Chaplin production. Especially when you consider the fact that this man spent several months or even years trying to plot out one scene in City Lights. When you consider the fact that he spent several months trying to deal with certain scenes in certain films, like City Lights. So, other elements of this film, the cinematography is rather poor by Georges Pernal. It's not really his fault. It's, again, I blame partly Chaplin, but also because of the rush schedule and the fact that Georges Pernal was not used to Chaplin's style. So, the cinematography is rather lacking in the film. But as a whole, it's a good film. It's a very flawed film. I mean, there are flaws in other Chaplin films, but this one has a lot of them, but it still works. It's still a very good talkie motion picture. And yeah, I think Chaplin is really good at making sound films as much as he was a silent filmmaker. I'm not saying he was the best talkie filmmaker, but he did make some exceptional films that had sound. So, I'd recommend checking this out, but if you have the DVD, I would suggest you go on to Hulu Plus and watch it because the quality is much better. Believe me, because there's a weird 4% increase in motion blur on these MK2 releases, and as good as they look, that motion blur just gets really annoying. So I'd suggest go to Hulu Plus, where they have a bunch of these Chaplin films. Check it out there. Also, I'm going to be talking about the other film in this DVD set, A Woman of Paris, a 1923 film, which was Chaplin's first film working under United Artists, and it provides his last leading role for a Chaplin film, and Chaplin's only straight-up dramatic piece. I'll see you guys in Silent Film Saturday where I'll be talking about A Woman of Paris. See you later. Hey guys, if you haven't checked it out already, you should check out the Facebook and the Twitter. They both have the same content, so check out either one. Facebook page just reached over 500 likes. I'm really excited about that, guys. That's amazing. As I'm recording this, it's at 5:45, I want to say. That's really cool. And I also have my blog down there, which I'll be planning to write more reviews and discussions and all that sort of stuff. So check it out, all that below, and I'll see you this Saturday.